So the stage is yours.
Thank you, Larissa, and also welcome from my side. And my name is Lei Liu, and together with my product expert Martin and Hitesh, today we will provide you a deep dive session on the SAP EHS environment management solution. So today we will have three parts mainly in our content. And first, I will give you a recap on the general portfolio of SAP Environment, Health, and Safety Management. And then my colleagues will deep dive deeper into different processes in the environment management, including water, air emissions, waste management, as well as compliance management. And then at the end, we will also have an outlook and the upcoming capability of audit and inspection management, and also provide you some further resources. How can you find more information on the solution as well as the processes? So let's start first with the SAP EHS general portfolio. As you can see, SAP EHS solutions are sitting in our digital core, SAP S/4HANA, and the portfolio on the main two areas. That's the environment management as well as workplace safety. Supporting these are the underlying cross-functional processes like compliance management, regulatory and permit compliance management, and also action and task management, as well as the audit and inspection management. And these ensure the operational consistency, compliance, as well as the safety across the organization. And from an integration perspective, SAP EHS connects closely with asset management, for example, to access equip information or maintenance notification. It also integrates with our HR systems, drawing on people data, and also connecting or interacting with the training process, for example, and to manage compliance and safety responsibilities. Importantly, SAP EHS is also a key enabler in their sustainability domain. That means it provides structured and high quality data to feed into, for example, like SAP Sustainability Control Tower for comprehensive ESG reporting. And of course, in addition, we provide analytics capability, either built in or through external analytics tools, really offer insights into environmental as well as safety performances for corrective as well as preventive actions can take help organizations really take informed decisions. And we're also leveraging emerging technologies, for example, like AI, to reduce manual effort and in some of the more heavy EHS processes, helping improve speed, accuracy, as well as overall efficiency. And for today's session, we will more focus on the environment management part, and we will briefly touch on the core areas of air emissions, including GHG gas tracking, and also waste management. And then we will have then a deeper dive into the water management. And for the water management, today we will more focus on the water balance study, which help organizations really understand the flow and storage of the water across their facility or region. And this supports more informed water conservation and regulatory strategies. And of course, the solution itself also covers the wastewater processing or wastewater management, which deal with more on their treatment and disposal of used or contaminated water. And another crucial point or crucial process that we will walk you through today is the compliance management, and showing how the solution really supports a complete compliance lifecycle, including manager compliance registers, as well as the fulfillment of the obligations. And finally, we will have also give you a sneak preview of the upcoming audit and inspection management, and designed for the further streamline the compliance and audit processes. So, and since we will cover only some of the process on a more higher level, if you're interested into a more detailed or discussion or have more interest on other topics related to environment management, just put into the chat. Then we can maybe organize another session or the later of this year to give more information on that. And with that, I would like to hand over to my colleague Martin to walk you through the water management process more in detail.
Hey, thank you very much, Lei. Yeah, let's have a look at the water management process within EHS environment management. For that, we to understand the process better, we put ourselves into the role of Ian, which you see here on the right side. Ian is an environmental manager at the facility level, and Ian is responsible for the water management. Let's understand how SAP Environment Management can help Ian as an environmental manager to perform his tasks. Yeah. Beside that, we will see Ian is also responsible for various other environmental topics, and water management is just one of them. Yeah. The company Ian works for has set goals for water conservation at the various facilities. Yeah? And he needs to contribute to that goal, to the water conservation. Additionally, to the scarcity of the water, yeah, where the facility or the facilities are located, especially iron ones, there's pressure for him also to optimize the water use overall in the facility. Yeah? And by achieving that, this can help Ian and overall to reduce the cost of procuring the water on one hand, but also the treatment costs of the discharge water. Yeah? And additionally, Ian has the duty to manage the compliance to water-related regulations and permits. Yeah? So, and typically, an easy way to achieve these goals Ian has is to build a water balance study. When creating a water balance study, you basically make note of all water use you have in the facility, and you track the water flows from the source through all operations in your facility to identify water losses, for example, the outputs you have, including also evaporation losses, the input into products, as well as the wastewater discharge. And in total, you have then all uses of the water in the facility, which give you then the water balance. So in short, water inputs, outputs, and losses give you the water balance. We have prepared for that. You see it at the bottom, and we'll have that link as well then in the chat, and guidance and blog how to build such a water balance, what it is about, and how you can do it within EHS environment management. Yeah. EHS environment management supports this process of identifying the water usage, as well as measure and estimate the usage, plus analyzing that. This is what we see here described in the process. Yeah? So that you have the potential and the possibilities for cost reductions and recycling opportunities supported with software. Let's have a look at the different capabilities of EHS environment management and how it supports this process of water management, respectively a water balance study. On one hand, we have the locations. If you can go one step back, Lei. Yeah, we have on one hand the locations, which help you to structure the facility and capture all the places, the outfalls and so on, where you have water use, where you have water discharge and so on. Second step, you have the activities like our data collections used to measure and to record all the water use in your facility. This includes also a workflow in behind to validate the data, to approve the data which is collected. And then in the next step in the process, the software provides equations and calculations to basically, if you don't have the meter readings, to calculate and or estimate water usage, for example. And finally, in the process, there are capabilities to basically monitor continuously the data, as well as to report what you have collected and calculated as data. We will see that also in the next slides. So now let's put again ourselves into the role of Ian, and we can switch to the next slide. Yeah, we see here one example of data collections as part of the wastewater management process. For example, Ian conducts then site walks to identify all the water inputs and outputs and collects the data already maybe manually and can enter that. Yeah. So this screen, what you see here, is also available on mobile device. So Ian can do that right away when walking through the site, collecting the data. Yeah? So for each outfall or the whole plant itself, numbers, the amount of purchased water can be collected, also in different frequencies. Like you see here, it's monthly, but also daily, yearly values are possible in the application. And if there is not only a manual way, but there are also APIs available to bring that data automatically into the system. If you have a meters installed, or from third-party systems, as well as to upload that, for example, from a spreadsheet. And behind that process, behind that screen, is plausibility checks to check on, okay, are these numbers, for example, in certain ranges? We can switch to the next slide. That's the data collection part, the activities. And basically, when you have no meter readings available, you probably need to aggregate, on one hand, the data and to estimate the data and calculate these values. For example, the overall water withdrawal, you need to aggregate that. While if you don't have certain meter readings, you need to estimate them. In such cases, the tool, the EHS Environment Management, provides capabilities to store a set of equations here, like you see here in that water policy, to reuse them in the application. Imagine there is an internal policy providing guidelines how the water usage shall be determined in the company. It's defined by the corporate or any international standards which describe how it needs to be done and the equations. Then it is possible to structure this with these policies, these standards, including then the equations, to have a universal equation library. In our blog post, we described that, how to set them out. We can switch to the next slide. Yeah, we see here one of these calculations a bit more, where like the monthly water here, rainfall estimated depending on the area. So these calculations can be set up in the system and reused at various outfalls or for the whole plant asset. We see that, for example, this calculation here calculates monthly water in cubic meter. Different units are possible, and we see on the left side the various calculations the application provides here in order to fulfill the goal of a water balance study for the water management. This is all about the calculation, the collection of the data, the estimation, which is possible. Finally, of course, you want to report the data. And for that, EHS Environment Management leverages the inbuilt S/4HANA embedded analytics capabilities. Top left, we see here a graphical representation of the total water withdrawal over the different months in a year. So the data, which is calculated, collected, can then be analyzed in this way. Or you see on the left side here, and it's a really nice representation of one of our from our implementation projects of a partner, to visualize it with a Sankey diagram, all the inputs, the outputs, the losses to describe the water balance. Basically, that's possibilities. Of course, there are more to analyze and report the data. I want to mention one last thing for the water management, which you should take with you. The setup for the water management is also a foundation for your ESRS or GRI reporting, which then can serve as foundation for our reporting in the sustainability, SAP Sustainability Control Tower. That was so far the water management process, a bit deeper. Now we switch to the air emissions management. And we have here again, Ian. You see, he has more responsibilities than just the water management. This time he is also responsible for the air emissions, handling that, fulfilling the regulatory compliance and obligations around the air emissions. His company has set again goals to reduce the emissions across the facilities and to report them to the corporate office. Yeah, and therefore, Ian is interested in collecting, first of all, the operational data, for example, the fuel use, control devices, any readings. He also wants to validate and calculate the emissions to finally report them to the authority as part of any regulatory requirements. Yeah. Again, briefly mentioning the process here, managing compliance around the regulations, the university library, collecting the data, estimating the emissions, reporting it. It's leveraging the same foundation like for the water management process. I keep that part quite short and would hand over now for another process here to Hitesh.
Thanks, Martin. Warm welcome from my end. I'll continue the overview of the other processes that can be supported through EHS environment management. And next, briefly, I'll talk about waste management process. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so again, we'll talk about Ian, who is an environmental manager at one of the facilities, and he also has the responsibilities of managing all the waste that is produced at his facility, right? The facility that he works for has both hazardous and non-hazardous and recyclable waste that gets produced. And he has to ensure compliance with all the waste regulations that are associated with the waste that they produce. Also, the company that he works for has a waste conservation and reduction goal that has been set. And so he has the obligation of basically making sure that they have those goals implemented at their sites for minimizing the waste that they produce. And as well as he has the mandate to reduce the cost for waste management. How does he do that within EHS environment management? Within the EHS product, you can now execute the process of end-to-end waste management from the time it's generated to the time you send it off-site for disposal. So very high level, you can identify all the waste-related data. That means the generation or the point of generations where you produce the waste, whether it is hazardous or non-hazardous waste. Secondly, you can create the waste materials and the codes associated with that. In most jurisdictions, if you go around the world, like in US or Germany, there is regulations in place that tells the ENs at different facilities on how to codify the waste based on the characteristics of the waste, right? So he has the responsibilities of analyzing the waste and making sure that it has the right waste code so that when they ship the waste for disposal, it has the right sort of paperwork and safety materials accompanying the waste when it's transported as well as for disposal. Yeah. He also has functionalities and features for identifying the transporters and the disposers within the identification process. For the on-site waste management, he can then start associating the point of generations to the waste materials using the waste stream handling functionality. He can then have tracking of the waste that is being produced for those waste streams and assign storage locations. and create waste transfer requests and inventories in the inventory management solution of SAP. Yeah. From a waste transportation standpoint, he can manage disposal channels. This is when you take your waste streams and associate them with dedicated transporters and disposal facilities. That is accomplished using the definition of the disposal channels. You can then produce your waste manifests, which will basically accompany the waste when you ship them, and as well as integrate purchase orders, because at some point you would have to pay for those shipments and the disposals. You can as well integrate purchase orders into the transportation documents as well. Yeah. Ultimately, once the waste is basically sent off for disposal, you have to monitor the waste to make sure that it is actually discarded and disposed of or recycled in the proper manner. He has to make sure in certain jurisdictions like Germany, where you get a waste permit, right? And you have to make sure that you don't exceed the limits of waste disposal associated with that material and that facility as well. So he can do that using the waste permit management functionalities in SAP Environment Management as well. And lastly, he has to analyze and keep track of all the cost that is associated with it, all the total amounts of waste that has been sent off-site, and make sure wherever there is an opportunity to reduce that waste, he can do that as well. Yeah. So I will not go into further details. The key benefits that you get out of this is you have an end-to-end management of cradle-to-grave waste management. You can identify waste minimization opportunities based on the amounts that you track. And you can also identify the cost of waste that you are disposing, right? So ultimately, you will have some mandate to basically reduce the cost of waste disposal as well. And ultimately, the goal is to basically reduce the risk of non-compliance with the waste regulations. So that's a quick overview on the waste management process that's supported with SAP EHS Environment Management. Now, with a little bit more depth, I'll talk about the next process, which is compliance management. This is also one of the responsibilities. In this case, we will take the example of Lisa, who is an EHS manager at the same facility that Ian works at. Yeah. Lisa's job is basically to make sure that the facility is compliant, not just with the environmental regulations, but also with the health and safety regulations. Ian reports to Lisa. And so one of the tasks that Lisa has is to manage the overall compliance of EHS at that facility. And so she has been tasked to make sure that she has a list of all obligations that are applicable for the facility. Not just the environmental ones, but also for the health, safety, transportation, etc. How does she do that? Well, she has to basically manage a compliance register. She needs to track all the obligations that are applicable to the facility. She has to also make sure that the compliance related to each and every obligation is executed in a timely manner, right? And the obligations are getting fulfilled. And make sure that in turn, she can maintain the operational continuity of the facility. How does she do that? Using SAP Environment Management. Well, in SAP Environment Management, you can manage obligations. You can create regulations, permits, policies, and you can have individual registers for each facility. Lisa manages her own registers for the facility that she works at. You know? She can trigger actionable requirements from those obligations, right? And obligations could be regulations, obligations could be corporate policies that they have, it could be management system standards, or it could be actual permits that are associated with that facility, whether they are environmental permits, multimedia permits that they have to comply with. Yeah? She can trigger actionable requirements and then make sure that she assesses the applicability of all those obligations within the system. Ultimately, she has to delegate those requirements and actionable requirements to individuals to fulfill them. And she does that using the manage task functionality of the application. She can trigger tasks, assign it to individual, assign periodicities to those, and basically make sure that these obligations are getting fulfilled. She can also stamp these obligations for fulfillment and make sure that if there is any updates to those obligations, that they have actions that get triggered off those obligations as well. She monitors all of these obligations using the analyze compliance step of the process. She has a task calendar by which she can view all the tasks associated with the obligations and that her team or the operations team is executing. She has a compliance overview dashboard by which she can track the process and basically also look at the KPIs. Yeah, I'll share some screens here to show you what the details of some of those steps are in the next few slides. If you can go to the next slide. So here is basically the compliance register view. This is the app that Lisa uses frequently. She is responsible for 2 sites, Sophia and Varna. And these are basically an example of the registers she can create. If you look at the site of Sophia, she has a bunch of regulations. She has a permit that's associated with that. She can track those within those registers for individual facilities. You can codify that or classify that with the domain field. You also have basically the status of fulfillment that you can stamp based on all the actionable steps for those regulations that you're tracking within the system. And if there is any action required, like for example, if there is a regulation that's getting updated, the system will automatically warn you that there is an action required for an obligation, and you may have to change some of the task assignments or even the fulfillment periods for those obligations. If you go to the next slide, she can as well track the performance of the process using the overview page for compliance obligation management. This is kind of a newly introduced functionality within the public cloud release of 2508, but now you can look at the overview. She's able to look at the compliance rate based on fulfillment of the obligations. She can track if all the obligations have been assessed for applicability or if there are a few that are still pending. She also can track the fulfillment of the multiple facilities that she would be responsible for. So on the very right, you can see a chart which shows all the locations and the fulfillment of the obligations under each of those registers as well. So this way, she's able to manage the complete process and get an overview of how the individual sites that she is responsible for are performing with the compliance. On the left side, you can also see quick links to the register, the actual permits that are associated with the site, the task calendar, and the ability to monitor the completion of the task applications as well. So it's a very robust end-to-end process that you can execute using SAP EHS Environment Management. We'll move to the next process now, which is basically more details around the permit management. So as I mentioned, she has to manage all sorts of obligations, and one of the obligations is permits, right? Very commonly, government issues various sorts of permits that the EHS folks have to care for. For example, Ian has the duties for air and waste, and sometimes they will have permits that are issued by the government agencies. These permits can be very daunting. To give you some examples, in the United States, if you get air permits, which are called Title V permits, they can range from 100 pages to even 1,000 pages. Yeah, there is stipulations that are basically listed in those permits, and you have to actually extract those requirements and make sure that you are completing and complying with those on a timely manner. So here we have made some new updates of leveraging AI to basically help the individuals like Ian and Lisa to manage the compliance process in a much more efficient manner in SAP Environment Management. And for that, we're going to show you a quick video on how this new AI-based permit management process works. And Lee, if you can trigger the video.
In today's fast-paced business world, staying on top of complex environmental regulations and permits can feel overwhelming. Companies often face hundreds of pages of dense regulatory text, leaving teams frustrated and at risk of costly non-compliance. Imagine the pressure of manually deciphering every must and shall statement, time wasted, errors made, and compliance tasks overlooked. Now, envision a smarter way forward. SAP EHS harnesses the power of AI to automatically capture every requirement from your permits and translate them into clear, actionable tasks. Let's dive into the demo and see step-by-step how our AI-assisted permit management capability captures the complex permit data, making compliance simpler and stress-free. It starts with creating the permit from a PDF document. AI extracts key information automatically. Paragraphs can be marked, and AI suggests relevant tasks. Suitable proposals can be accepted easily, with the option to create tasks manually. say goodbye to heavy paperwork and hello to streamlined efficiency, so you can focus on what truly matters.
Awesome. That was a very quick glimpse into the AI-assisted permit management process. Hopefully that gives you a preview into how we are making the solution even more efficient using AI-based technology, and you can expect more of such sort of functionalities across the EHS platform. Next, briefly, I'll talk about the integration scenarios. To a large extent, within the sustainability solution portfolio of SAP, you can see how SAP EHS Environment Management is integrated into the sustainability solution portfolio. So you can look at the very top, you have SAP Sustainability Footprint Management, and you have SAP Sustainability Control Tower. With new regulations in place, like the EU CSRD regulations, a large set of data will basically need to be leveraged and populated into the sustainability reports from the EHS applications. Specifically, there is a large set of data that will basically be sourced from the environment management system. If customers leverage EHS Environment Management together with SAP Sustainability Control Tower, you can manage all your air emissions, greenhouse gas, water, wastewater, and waste data within environment management, but at the same time, leverage that same sort of transactional data into your sustainability reports. You also have integration from shop floor data. If you look at the very bottom of this, you have the ability to upload bulk data into environment management. You can integrate it with the other SAP softwares as well, and the other products within the SAP portfolio, as well as leverage middlewares or tools such as the Digital Manufacturing Cloud to get the shop floor data from your data historians, which is very essential for your compliance processes, whether it's related to air emissions management or wastewater management. So this gives you a very quick overview that it is not just a siloed solution, but a well-integrated solution with SAP solution portfolio, with the sustainability solution portfolio, as well as being able to leverage external data sets from using bulk load technologies or from the Digital Manufacturing Cloud integration using data historian data as well. If you can move to the next slide. Next, I'll give you a brief outlook on a completely new process within the EHS portfolio, which is audits and inspections management. Mary, who is basically a corporate EHS auditor, has the task of making sure that she and her team have a complete compliance verification process across all their sites. And so for this, she has to basically make sure that she can convince the management and assure them that the sites that have all the compliance responsibilities within EHS are basically performing and complying in a timely manner. And if there's if there are any issues that are surfacing, she can easily identify and make sure that they are rectified on time. And so she has the mandate to basically implement a corporate audit management process, which also includes a site inspection management process, since they have fundamentally a lot of common threads with the functionalities. But briefly, I'll talk about the audit management functionality today. So what do we plan here? We plan a complete end-to-end audit management and inspection management process where you will have a planning phase where the corporate audit managers can basically plan out their audits, define the audit plan for the years or multiple years, define all the protocols that they need or the questionnaires that are needed, who's going to be part of the audit teams, including external auditors. Scheduling these audits will be all part of the functionalities for the audit management. Actually executing the audits as well, conducting the site inspections, documenting the findings, and basically making sure that if there's any recommendations they want to put in there, and collecting all sorts of evidence while they are auditing the sites. Finally, preparing their audit reports based on the findings that they have had during that process. Ratings, whether there is qualitative or quantitative ratings that they need to assign to those findings, and building any sort of analytics for the audit management process. Finally, triggering a corrective and a preventive action plan related to individual audits that they are conducting, triggering those, and then monitoring timely completion of these corrective and preventive actions based on the audit that they are performing. So this process is basically newly going to be introduced. We hope that you can stay tuned for this. Current planned outlook is sometime in 2026. You can see the new feature sets that will be available as part of the public cloud release strategy. And for the actual timelines, you can stay tuned and watch the Roadmap Explorer on SAP's site, where we will post updates on when the first set of released functionalities would be available. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Lee. I think, Lee, it is next back to you for further wrap up and further resources. But I just again want to make one brief statement, right? Hopefully today it was a really very high level overview of the key component of EHS, which is the environment management solution, the various processes that we have within that, right? So you got a good gist of it. We dig into a couple of processes in a little bit more detail because they're kind of new and we are making some new functionalities and enhancements to those processes. But if you're interested in more of this, please put that in the chat and we'll be happy to do some deep dive into individual processes at a later time. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Hitesh, and also thank you, Martin, for guiding us through different processes and the environment management, including, for example, like air emission management and waste management. We have a little bit deeper view on the water, especially in the water balance study part, and we have also have a gently look at the waste management part, and also thank Hitesh for guiding you through the compliance obligation management more in detail. And we have also had a look at the AI capability in the environment management part, and we will of course introduce more AI use cases in the future. And with that, I would also like to give you some more information on how can you access more details on the product. First, we have on the sap.com a really fresh new look of our product, as you can scan the barcode or use really the shortcut of sap.com/EHS -EM. Then you can access the new product site and to explore more on the capabilities and features on our EHS environment management solution. And also very welcome to join our community on SAP community site, and there you will also discover the latest release highlights, for example, our innovations, and also the blog post and more resources, for example, like on learning journeys, for example, and then you will have a really comprehensive view on the entire EHS portfolio. And for that, I would like to also encourage you to join our SAP Continuous Influence part site, that you can also submit your feature request of our product and to really shape our development and the direction of our product, of our solutions. And last but not least, I would like to make a little advertisement also for our upcoming webinar on the other part of the EHS portfolio, that's the workplace safety. We will also have in the similar format like today, we'll provide you a detailed view or detailed information on the workplace safety solution on June the 25th, also at the same time, 4 p.m. CST, and feel free to join, and please register yourself here via this barcode. And I think we still have a couple of minutes left. And if you have any questions, feel free to address them to our expert, and we're more than happy to answer them. And as Hitesh said, right, if you are interested in other processes in details, just tell us and put that in the chat. Then we are happy to organize also another webinar and talk more in detail on those topics.
I think we can already look at some of the questions that are coming in on the chat. I think there is most recent question is on EHS. Is it possible to send data collection values to SCT? Yes, there is already integration that's available. from EHS into SCT for specific sets of data. For greenhouse gas data, this is already available. There is more to come on this as well from the new BDC strategy, where we'll be enabling not just the environmental data, but also the health and safety data to be leveraged for the sustainability reports. Martin, do you want to add something there specifically? And I think we also have a blog that's published in the community for greenhouse gas data and how you can integrate that with sustainability control tower.
Exactly, you summarized it quite well. Hitesh, that's already available for the GHG data, and more to come. We are working on the data products for a BDC to make that environmental data and power data of EHS available. No?
There's an additional question related to integration with MII. I think it says in public cloud, do we have the feasibility to perform automatic data collection through API? I think the API, Martin, is available, correct? For EM in the public cloud. MII is now in maintenance. You may be aware of this. So we will basically leverage the digital manufacturing cloud to integrate the shop floor data into SAP environment. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, but you can still leverage MII. So there is customers who are still using MII for their private cloud implementations as well as on-prem implementation, right? So if it is available and you want to leverage that, sending data to EM in public cloud should be possible.
Hitesh, there is one more question about what are the AI use cases currently available or planned for future release for EHS?
For EHS, I think broadly for EM specifically, we are working on this permit management. Yeah, and this one will also get updated with sort of more functionalities related to permit management. And not just for permits, but we will also extend it to complete obligations, right? So whether you have regulations, which are document-centric, or policies which are document-centric, you'll be able to easily process requirements of that and tasks of those documents within the system. So you can expect more AI feature sets in the same line as permits within the compliance management. At least that's what we are working on in the near term. With health and safety, you will see updates of this on the next webinar. So I highly encourage you to join that next webinar. Lee just posted the dates for it, and they will give you more details. I don't want to basically talk about the health and safety ones and let Maria talk about those. So please join that next update, and you will be able to see what sort of AI. I think there is 2 or 3 use cases that she's going to talk about in that webinar. Yeah.
Yeah. There are 2 more in the workplace safety part. One is dual case for the safety observation, and another is safety instruction based on AI. As Hitesh said, right? We will tell more detail in that upcoming session, so not spoil too much in this part.
Yeah. I think there is a question on audit and inspection management as well. Sorry, Martin.
Maybe Hitesh, for the AI-assisted permit management, as it is already available, we are also interested in your feedback. Yeah, if you have a look on that in more detail on the materials which are available. Yeah, we are interested to hear any feedback you have on the process. Yeah, for further improving that process. Sorry, Hitesh, back to you for the audit management question.
Yeah, there is a question related to audit and inspection management, saying, is it specific to EHSM process, or is it replacing the current PLM audit management? A great question. No, it's not replacement of the PLM audit management. The whole intent of developing this is to basically make sure first we fulfill the requirements of the EHS audit management process. That will be the goal. But we are also working, or at least closely collaborating, the goal is at least there, to work with the PLM folks to make sure that where possible, to design the solution in such a manner that it can be leveraged by others as well. Yeah, but again, this is a very high level statement since we have not even started the design, which will kick off soon. But you can expect that there will be some flexibility to basically deploy it for other use cases like PLM, but it's not replacing the PLM. This one is basically a net new development as part of the EHS suite, and that we will integrate it with the EHS processes as well, like the compliance obligation management, the locations, the requirements, regulations, etc., will be well integrated into this whole process. Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
There is one more question in the Q&A section, which is there any plan to native integration capability with SCT other than emissions data?
Yes, I think I talked about it, right? So using the business data cloud, the BDC, we will basically integrate not just environmental data, but also health and safety data for sustainability reporting. So if you look at the regulations such as the EU CSRD or the sustainability regulations in India, there is a lot of health and safety related data, incident data, injuries data that has to be reported on the sustainable reports as well. And the plan is to integrate all of that into SCT for the broad set of reporting. I think there's close to, based on external data analysis, there's about 60 or 70% of the CSRD data will come from the EHS suite portfolio.
Yeah, so basically for the integrations between EHS and the sustainability footprint management and the sustainability control tower, there are already direct integrations available as of today, and documentation available for that. And we are going in future in the direction of the BDC based integration based on data products. Yeah, and as Hitesh already described, we are working on that part with the energy and environmental data.
Mm-hmm. But you will see step-by-step increments on this, right? It's not going to be one big bang where you'll have all sorts of data. You've started with the environmental data and integrating it, but slowly you will see more and more EHS data that will basically be even compliance data, because there is, notice of violations or citations. That data has to be reported on certain sustainability metrics like GRI. Even the wastewater data has to be reported in some cases, qualitative data. And so you will see some of those integration come on the roadmap as well over the next year or so.
Because we have the goal here also with the data products, to integrate them with the data from other SAP modules, to get more insights into the relation of the environmental data to, for example, production data. And that's where we are heading to with the development of our data products.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat.
I also don't see more questions.
I probably can make one more announcement while we don't have questions. That if there are any partners on this call, we will have a partner enablement session on July 16th. So please join our community site where you will get all the links and information to register for that session as well.
Thank you, Larissa, for that. Yeah.
And the link to the community is posted in the chat, right, Lee?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there's one more question comment in the chat in the public cloud 2502.
For scenarios, do we have a feasibility in public cloud 2502, automatic data collection from smart meters to EHS? From EHS, can we publish the consumed data to SCT and leverage corporate carbon footprint for calculating emissions, right? Yeah, so I think we have an API, right? So you can push the data from any external system, whether it's smart meters. There is also partners such as Arcadis, who is basically collecting utilities data and sending it through their cloud into environment management. So there's partners who have done some work. There is partners like Yash Technologies who have done some work of basically taking external data, not just the smart meter data, but even external systems data or utility and invoice data, reading them and sending them into the API of EM. And from there, then you have the options of leveraging it both in the SFM solution for corporate carbon footprinting or into SCT for sustainable reports. And I think there is a few blogs that have been published in the community space as well. They are dedicated to greenhouse gas, but the integration is very similar. But there'll be more structured integration for specific sets of data related to energy, water, wastewater, health and safety, etc., coming up, and even compliance coming up in future. But from an API perspective, you should be able to leverage that. And we are agnostic to it. So any external system can be leveraged to push data into SAP Environment Management. Seems we have exhausted all the questions. If there are no more questions, I really appreciate you joining this call. Hopefully, at least this gives you a bit of flavor of the various processes that can be supported through EHS Environment Management. At a later point, if you're interested, happy to do some deeper dives into the individual processes. Yeah. Lee, Martin, Larissa, thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah.
Thank you also
Thank
from
you,
my
and
side.
thank you to the participants.